Good morning and welcome to Wisdom on Wednesday. Today we're privileged to have Bianca Vimont join us. She is the parent of 5 kids, all who attend Veritas, along with her husband's sister, who also lives with them as a student at Veritas. And she's also a teacher and a department head in our school. And I'm so excited today for her to share some tips from Sally Clarkson's book called Awakening Wonder. It's a great book about opening up your child's heart to the beauty of learning. And I know that Bianca has some wonderful tips to share regarding this. So go ahead, Bianca. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. Good morning, Ellen. It's actually an honor to be here this morning. Ellen, you and your family have been such an inspiration to Jordan and I as we're raising our kids. So first, I want to introduce myself just a little bit farther. So I've been here at Veritas for many years, for around 10 years, depending on how we count. And the reason I say this is because we've actually had a family relationship with Veritas from its beginnings. So Jordan and I met in college and we immediately became really good friends. And eventually we got married while we're still in college. So from the very beginning, we desired something different for our family, something different for our children and grandchildren, something that we didn't really have growing up. Okay, so it was during this time that I just started praying in college that the Lord would bring women around me. I call them Titus 2 women. So in case you're wondering what that is, a Titus 2 woman means women that could mentor and disciple me, women who love God. So my own mother is a wonderful and godly and a noble mom, but she lives far away and she takes really good care of my special needs sister. So it's never really been very practical for her to be a part of my daily life. So it was in these very early years of motherhood that I asked God to introduce me to women that would have an influence on me being a wife and a mother. Well, I wanted to be the best mom that I could be. So during this time, God was also weaving Veritas together through its founding families. So Jordan and I had crossroads with some of these families and loved this idea, loved classical Christian education, just fell in love with the idea of spending lots of time with our kids on the home days. It seemed like it would be a challenge, but we were up for it. And then God did something crazy. We moved to Houston for a couple of years. And in Houston, we were part of a startup school called Trinity Classical. And Ellen and Jeff and Starla helped us start that school. We had wonderful families from Houston that we joined, and it's still a classical school there today. Well, a couple years later, we moved back, and Ellen has been a part of my life since.
And I'm glad that's the case.
Me too. So just a few months being back in Austin, Ellen and I's relationship grew and grew, and I was so excited to be part of Veritas's community, like really for the first time, hands-on on campus. Okay, well, during this time, I was also looking for and asking God just to give me a wealth of information and wisdom on growing my family. Well, I stumbled upon this author, Sally Clarkson, and Sally has a homeschool curriculum that really focuses on mentoring and shaping and molding the heart of your children. So I fell in love with her. I have heard her speak at conferences and I've read many of her books. And this last book is sort of her memoir. It's a lot of her wisdom from all the books I've read put into one. And it focuses on how to awaken wonder in your child. All right. Well, Sally believes that educating the child's heart will actually, and awakening wonder, will actually point them to Jesus, point them to the cross. So I want to read you an excerpt from her book. There's a lot of her book that I can read. All right, so here's what she says towards the beginning of her book. Wonder is the engine that drives curiosity and propels a robust intellect. Wonder gives us a lens through which we better view the miraculous, the sacred, the intricacy of our world around us, and help form our spiritual imagination. We ponder the personality, inspiration, and breadth of the one who created all the sublime natural art we behold. We respond in awe and worship. A child fashioned by a wonder-filled life will cultivate inner strength, a confidence in his own ability to think, evaluate, and know. But those who influence children must fight to protect time for the imagination to have space, to work, to have time to engage. Recognizing the elegant and complex design of human beings, we understand that each has a capacity to think, to create, to acquire mental muscle, to love, have agency, to act in life.
That's so beautiful. I love that.
It is. A few pages later, she says, wonder is key. Wonder fuels learning, causes a brain to grow, exercises mental muscle, and gives child impetus to grow intellectually. Wonder is focused on the child's power to engage and influence his own by driving fully into what is drawing him to imagine bigger and broader concepts. Wonder teaches a child to own his capacity to know, understand, work, and generate interest in life. Just as wonder is key for children, it's also for us parents. There's no exact formula for parents or teachers to follow, but instead we recognize that each of us has agency to apply our imaginations and give our imprint to education in the context of our own stories and priorities. So Ellen, I could go on and on and on talking about this book, but I would like to say that although wonder is a key component in educating our children, it's so important to know what Sally says is that it's a key component in ourselves too. So using our own imagination and our own experiences, like Sally says, just brings our homeschool days to life. Okay, can I read some quotes to you about or from?
I want to interject here as I'm listening to you, and I've started to read this book, is the sense that I have that we've lost wonder in our culture and that we've become almost robotic in how we do things, and just excites me to hear ideas on how we can, as parents, infuse wonder into our own lives and transition that to our children. So what do you have to say? How do we do that, Bianca?
Yes, well, I have some ideas that I have actually 4 basic ideas. They're very simple, and they're just ideas on how to ignite this wonder into your children, okay? But before I get those, I want to start with something really, really very basic, okay? So I'm really talking to myself as well. When we have time with our children, which we need to treasure every single day, let's just put our phones away. It's very practical, okay? Because if you're a mom like me, it's really easy to be distracted by texts that are usually important, emails that are usually important, and social media.
Yes.
Okay, so it's embarrassing to admit, but I do it too. So I really try to keep very strict boundaries on my phone, especially on my Tuesday and Thursday when I'm with my kids. Okay, and another thing before I give these 4 basic ideas is to remember that not one family is the same. So there's not one perfect formula. Just remember that each of your children is created in God's image. They're image bearers, okay? So what works for one family or what works for mine doesn't necessarily fit for yours or your friend's family, okay? All right, so the first thing that I want to say is pray for Titus 2 women in your life. Older Christian women who can point you to the cross, you can call when days are rough, who will remind you that motherhood is one of our greatest gifts, one of our greatest callings. I'll never forget the advice of one of my friends when I was in college. Her name was Susan. And she was one of these moms that was about, I would say maybe 10, 15 years older than me. And I was in her home a lot watching her kids. And she just led me in life in college. And I asked her one day, I said, Susan, if you could tell yourself one thing in college, what would it be? And she said, oh, Bianca, read the Bible and pray. It's like, okay, well, how? She said, it just depends on your stage of life, but just read and pray every single day. So, moms, there is just no greater book that can teach and inspire us and create that wonder in ourselves than God's Word, God's holy word. So if you're in the stage of your life where it's just too hard to be able to read a lot or to inductively study the Bible, well, you have a friend in me. That was my stage for many, many years, where I had all these little monkeys, my little children hanging on me. And my friend Michelle, who actually works at Veritas on the second floor, Michelle gave me some really good advice when I had my first kid. And she said, when you don't have time to read the scriptures, which might be for a few more years, just read a proverb and a psalm every day. And I still go to that. That's just my go-to. On home days, when I know we have a lot going on, we sit on the floor and we open up the Proverbs of the day. So yesterday was the 16th, 17th. So we read Proverbs 17 and we just read the proverb around in a circle. And then, of course, we pray. Okay. All right. Number two, read your children every single day. Okay. Every day that you can. Every single day is not practical, but as often as you can. Read good stories, read poems and biographies, fill their minds and their hearts with lots and lots of stories. This was a habit that I started when my children were really, really young. I read out loud to them, all of them, and I still do. So I have my youngest is second grade and my oldest are in 10th grade, and we still enjoy reading out loud. Daddy reads out loud as well. We have two different books, one that mom reads out loud and another one that their father reads out loud to the family. Okay, if you need suggestions on what are good books that can fit for your stage, so it might be a stage that I'm in, a book that would apply to all my kids, or maybe you just have littles at home and you want good books to read to your littles. We have a wealth of resources at Veritas. You can ask our school librarian, Robin Ligon, for suggestions. She has just created a wealth of sweet, rich, old, and new books for all ages. She's a great resource. And your teachers, your children's teachers, they're also wonderful resources. Okay, ready for number three? Number three, get outside with your children, okay? Enjoy nature, from rocks and bugs and trees, water, animals. Spend time running and biking and fishing and climbing and sitting, even doing homeschool outside, just reading outside. Time that you can spend outdoors creates a wealth of not just knowledge, but it directs the mind to just things that you can't really find indoors, and most certainly not on the internet. God is our creator, and he has filled our minds to wonder about him. So this is just a treasure in our time, our family time, especially our home times, is getting outside a lot. When my children were younger, we would have an outdoor bag. So when we would do homeschool outside or just go on walks outside, even if they were just down the street and back, we had a bag. And our outdoor bag had 5 things in it. It had a small quilt, very, very small, okay, a thin little quilt that I shoved in there. It had their nature journals. So every kid just had their own little journal. My 2-year-olds would scribble, and my older ones like to draw animals or rocks, whatever we found that day. I had matte pencils, 1 bottle of water, and I say 1 because it's kind of tedious to have 1 bottle for every single person. So yes, when they were little, they just shared germs. And when one of my littles got sick with a little cold or something, sometimes they all did, but we just had 1 bottle of water, okay? And then a couple of small little containers to collect, like rocks and bugs and flowers and leaves, or whatever, mud. Sometimes there's just mud or sand, but little things to collect. And sometimes we just ended up throwing the little treasures away, and sometimes we saved them for a while. Okay, my last one is kind of big, and it's to have margin. Have margin in your day. Keep your days, especially your Tuesday and Thursday, really, really simple. If you do this, this allows you to give your children time to wonder. Okay, whether it's time to play indoors or outdoors, it's just time that you can have set, sort of free time that you can be with your child as they explore and create. They're going to ask you a million questions, and that's good. And it's really enjoyable, and make it fun. This is just part of the process. If you have a 4-year-old, they'll probably ask you at least 100 questions, and that's just a part of the child's development to ask these questions. So just take the time to connect with them. I try not to use that time to check my messages or clean house or even fold laundry. I mean, those things are necessary, but I really try to save this time and create that margin so that I can have those conversations that knit our minds and our hearts together with our children. And it really does bring great, great joy to our home days. Well, Ellen, those are my 4 big takeaways, but I do have a Bible verse I'd like to end with.
Great.
Okay, so this is a Bible verse that was instilled in my heart and my soul when I first became a mom, okay? And it comes from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 5, verses 6 and 7. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up.
So Bianca, that is so great, because what you're ending with is the wonder of God, which is
Yes,
really the engine that drives our lives. And I
it
just
is.
love your 4 tips. And I love the fact that you brought in margin, because what I'm always reminding parents at my age is how quickly the season of
Mhm.
parenting your kids goes by. And I think back to even when you first started at Veritas and where you are right now, and how that season of having those days with kids at home and really guarding that time is so vitally important. We have such a gift that we have in this model to spend that time with our kids in learning with them. And I think your tips add such great ideas on how we can enrich that time. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And I do hope you join us again. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen. It's so true that raising children, the days are long and the years are so short. It just seems like it was yesterday that we met. So thank you for having me, Ellen.
And goodbye, everyone.